already started it?
Oh, man. All right, everyone. Welcome to the Xhale podcast. A bit of an awkward start at the beginning here. However, I am your host, Eric Strauss. I'm here with Rodney. He's going to be running the controls for me over there tonight. You know what, Robin, say hey in the background.
Right door.
So today we're doing good evening, Rodman, and PJ too. PJ Cole. Check out the PJ Cole special episode. um, so we're gonna be doing just a quick gear overview for the upcoming lobster season this year. The 2018 lobster season is getting ready to start August 6th.
August 6th.
August 6th. That's the day. So today we're just taking a quick look at some of the gear that you're going to want to probably get your hands on if you're interested in catching yourself some lobsters this year. Now, we already had the mini season go by. If you want to listen to that podcast, we did a full podcast episode just on mini season, kind of going over some stories that we've had from years past, gear that we like. But today we're looking in depth at the gear specifically and going to be able to show the stuff to you. So starting off, I'm going to start with the most basic item that most people get into lobstering using. So generally, you're going to find these in a kit. You can get them with the net, the tickle stick, a pair of gloves, and a lobster gauge. We probably should have a PJ, can you grab me a lobster gauge off the shelf while we're running here? Thank you. So the net and tickle stick is the tried and true fashion of catching lobster. And this tickle stick here is one of my favorites. It's the standard aluminum. What I like about this is that it's the solid aluminum tickle stick. Doesn't have a hole through the middle. Makes it a little bit stronger. But the key for me here is I'm looking for a stick that's got that angle on the end of it. The reason for that is it gives you a way to get behind the lobster without having to go at like an absurd angle and be able to kind of bump that lobster out from behind the hole or behind the lobster to get him out of the hole. And then you can go ahead and place your net behind him. Now your standard lobster net is going to be looking like this guy. It's the most common thing. It's just like a nylon netting on it, nothing special. But what you're looking for is a nice deep net on the thing. You can see how deep this net actually goes. That's going to help you for when you catch a lobster, like so. He goes in the net, and now you can actually flip that net so the lobster is going to be hanging on the side, and that's going to make it a lot more difficult for that lobster to get out. Is that in frame? Yeah, you can see it. So that's the concept there. I like the nets. They come in different size or different lengths for the handles. This is kind of the perfect length. They make some that are a little bit shorter. I like those too, but I definitely don't want to go much longer than this one is here. So you can see that's nice. You know, it's not going to be too cumbersome to carry around in the water. Now, next up are going to be your snares. So those are going to be the two main things that people catch lobsters with if they're using an item to catch them with. Some people catch them with their hands, or in the net and tickle stick, or snares. The most common one that I see out there is the old green, the Oceanus Engineering. They make this. We call it the Greenie. Now, this is a really popular setup. They've been around for a long time. As you can see, it's got a little loop of cable on the one end. You're actually going to use that loop of cable to slide around the lobster, and then you're going to close it around him. So this particular snare you can actually use as a tickle stick as well. So you want to close that loop up. You can now use that to get behind the lobsters, bring them out, and then open the tickle stick up, open the snare up, get behind them, and snatch the lobster up with the snare. So let's see if I can get this guy. So that's what that's going to look like. Ideally, you're going to want to get them like up towards where the tail and the carapace meet, but you'll quickly find that wherever you end up is where you end up. So a couple things with the snares. You're going to want to look for a snare that locks closed. So this is in the open position now. When you close this snare, when you activate it, you pull this piece out of the back. That's going to actually close the snare itself. And then it's not going to be able to open back up again without actuating the release button on it. So this button actually allows you to operate that stick to open it. Without that, it can't, and then the lobster can't get out very easily. So that's a manual snare. The next up is the automatic. So this is a really common automatic snare that I see around. It is the Aquatic Specialties. Same kind of concept as far as using, where it has an actuating button. You're going to use that button to load the bar on the back. That opens up the snare, and then you're going to catch the lobsters by actuating that button again, and it's going to close it automatically. You don't actually have to I'm not going to dry fire it because you're not supposed to. It can damage it, but you're pressing that to let that close on the lobster by itself. Again, this is a locking snare, so once it's closed, and those lobsters aren't going to get out. Another kind too that's kind of cool, kind of a minimalist style mechanism, is the open snare or the loose snare. So this is just a doubled up piece of cable. There's no mechanism to it or anything. Very simple. This one doubles as a tickle stick. This is from a company called Tail Hunter. So this, you're actually going to just slide behind the lobster like normal. And then when you go to close it, you actually have to pull the whole thing into your hand. So now that lobster is in your hand, you can get a hold of them easily. But there's no mechanism on there. It's just kind of a little bit different technique to it. Otherwise, as far as that stuff goes, that's going to be your main gear. There's a couple other styles of tickle sticks. You've got the big acrylic ones. I prefer the thinner aluminum ones. They're easier to get into small holes. And then you've got the top dog of tickle sticks. So this is actually a lighted tickle stick. It's a pretty cool little thing here. A lot of lobstering guys, especially from mini season, are going out at night, so they can be the first guys on their spots. That can make it easier. You know, you don't have to carry a separate light. You can just use that. It's going to light up all the holes and find the lobsters for you. Okay, in addition to the catching gear, some other things you're going to want is definitely a pair of gloves. So we have some pairs of gloves over here, starting with one of the least expensive pairs of gloves. Actually, both of these are pretty inexpensive. These are the two most common gloves that you see people wearing. You've got the old hamburger helper and the gardening glove. We prefer the hamburger helper. It's actually just basically a cotton glove with some silicone drizzled over it. They grip really, really well. They're thick enough that you're not gonna get too many like punctures and stuff from the lobster's spines. And they just hold up really well. That grip doesn't really wear out on them very easily. The other style, the gardening glove here, this is actually a Cordova glove. A lot of them are cotton as well, with a latex grip on them. This latex wears out with heat and UV. It starts smearing on stuff, gets all over your boat, all over your gear. So just don't expect a lot of lifetime out of these. Your next upgrade from those, and what I generally suggest for most activities on the water, whether it's lobstering or spearfishing or whatever you're getting up to, is the Dyneema glove. So this is basically like a chef's glove. It's a Dyneema fabric. It's a cut and puncture resistant fabric with a nitrile palm on it. So that nitrile is a little bit thicker. Excuse me. The nitrile is a little bit thicker. It's going to hold up better to lobster spines and that sort of thing. And this fabric is going to hold up for punctures and cuts better as well. And this nitrile doesn't break down like the latex does. It's not going to smear all over your stuff or on your boat. So it's a bit of an upgrade. And then the Cadillac of gloves for lobstering is going to be the all Kevlar glove. This one's from Akona. A bunch of different companies make these as well. But this glove is Kevlar all the way around from the back to the palm through the fingers. Very, very tough gloves. It's very difficult for lobster spines to get through this material. And it's almost got like a sandpaper feel to it. So this stuff grips on a carapace really well, carapace of a lobster. But it's not ideal for like using pole spears or anything like that because it's hard to grip. The pole spears kind of want to slide through it. And that goes the same for any other stuff that you're using. You can see they don't really grip on that very well compared to like even the hamburger helper. That glove wants to stay in place. So those are your different options for gloves. Aside from that, if you're lobstering in Florida, you have to have a lobster measuring device on you. So there's a minimum size for the carapace on a lobster, and that's going to be a 3-inch carapace. There's a certain way you want to measure them, where you're actually in between the eyes, but on the hard part of the carapace. There's a bit of a soft area in between the eyes. You want to make sure you're not measuring that soft area. You're measuring the hard part of the carapace. To the end of the marker here, that marker has to be up on top of the carapace, not sliding over the back. We go more in depth into that in our last podcast episode. There's a bunch of different styles of those. You got plastic ones, aluminum ones, the Headhunter Deluxe Edition with the bottle opener on it as well. And then you need somewhere to put your lobsters once you catch them. there's all different ways to do it. Some guys just chuck them in the boat one at a time, but if you're really getting after it, you're going to want something to throw all your lobsters in, carry them around for a little bit, and then unload them all at one time into the boat. So my favorite way of doing that is with one of these little, they call them a lobster hotel or lobster condo bag. They've got all different names for them. Every brand has a different term for them. But the key thing you're looking for here is the PVC top with the one-way flap in it. What that allows you to do is when you've captured your lobsters, you want to put them in backwards. They're going to want to swim backwards anyway. Sorry, out of frame there a little bit. They're going to want to swim backwards by themselves. So they're going to go straight through that one way and get caught in the bag, and they can't come out the other way. It's easy to get them in there versus just a drawstring bag where you're trying to hold the drawstring open and get the lobster in. And now even when it comes to these, there's a few different types. Let's see if I can get this guy open. So you can see this one is all mesh, and this one has like a nylon top to it. That nylon top will help the lobsters not catch on the mesh in the first part of it, so that they'll kind of go all the way to the bottom without getting stuck around the mouth. Whereas this style, the lobsters want to, all their spines and legs get stuck in that mesh, and it can actually, they'll get like bunched up at the top. The other thing that's nice with this nylon, when you have a bag full of lobsters and the bag is just kind of stuffed out, this top is, if you're swimming around, that top's going to be like brushing against your legs. Their spines can't really get through this, whereas in the mesh part, they're going to be beating up your legs and scratching you up and that kind of thing. Now, most of these have an opening on the bottom. This one's a zippered one. That one's a Velcro. It's going to allow you to dump your lobsters out the bottom once you're done. Always make sure to zip that bad boy back up. Can't even explain to you the disappointment when you throw a lobster in your bag and you watch it swim out the other side. Done that quite a few times. Anyway, that's going to be your basic rundown on some of the gear that you're going to see generally for lobstering. You've got your net and tickle sticks, your snares. Some people catch them by hand, like I said. There's other techniques that we've talked about in the previous podcast and that kind of thing, but generally this is what you're going to see people using. So that's our quick little video for today on lobstering. Definitely check out this gear at Florida Freedivers. You can find it there. We'll see you in the next one. Adios.